atomic gigantification was a sweeping Japan nation when along came a dude with an ultra attitude, a Kamen Rider who's the greatest kicker of Japan. And of all, man, life's too short now, baby, to not talk big now, baby.
Welcome everybody back to a brand new episode of Kaiju Conversation. I'm your host Elijah, and joining me as always, my lovely co-host.
Hello, I am Rex.
And we are back at it again here in the second week of August, ready to party.
I don't know how to respond to that. I was going to say something that I lost track of my
You're not ready to party, Rex.
I'm sorry, man. Life is crazy.
You've got to be ready, because tonight's going to be a good night.
Why is that?
Because we're recording a podcast.
Oh, that's so true.
You know, we're going to have a great conversation about the topic of today's episode. But you know, before we do that, we have some housekeeping. It's been a rough week for us. So we need to, you know, make sure that the other person's not going to go off the deep end. So Rex, how have you been, buddy?
Oh, for the most part, pretty good. Minus some, I was going to say minor annoyances, but there's a couple other things that but I'm probably doing better than you.
Yeah. Yeah, you. So I can't wait to listen to last week's bonus episode and this week's episode.
Oh boy.
Because I feel like it's going to be a complete 180 of like how I'm acting and how I'm talking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what you've listened to, but I don't really remember the bonus episode's recording, to be honest. But I have a striking feeling I sounded awful.
From what I recall, you sounded better than I anticipated, actually.
Well, that's good. That's good that I was better than anticipated.
But granted, I also haven't had a chance to start editing yet, so...
This is true. You know, people are going to be like, start editing? That came out last week. How have you not started editing yet?
Whoa, it's like these are recorded in advance.
It's almost like we have a lot of stuff planned that we got to record early.
It's almost like it might actually still be July. I mean, what?
I don't know what you're talking about. You know, what's funny is I was listening to our Astro Monster episode, which just came out not too long ago.
It feels like it's been like weeks since we did. Oh, well, I guess it has been weeks since we did it.
It's been 4 weeks since we recorded that.
Has it? No.
Yeah, it was the first week of July. We literally say it's the first week of July in that recording.
I watched the movie on the 8th.
No,
July,
because the second week I had G-Fest. The third week you had Ring, and we're in the fourth week.
Whatever, I don't care to argue this.
Because I'm right.
No.
Bing bong, you're wrong.
No. My letterbox says I watched the movie on the 8th of July, which is the Saturday for me. The 7th would have been Friday for you. So checkmate. So technically it's the first full week of July.
And we're in the fourth full week of July.
Well, let's just shut up. Let's move on.
Time is a problem.
I'm kind of shocked it's still July, honestly, this month. It
has
feels
kind
like
of dragged.
It feels like it ended like 3 times.
Yeah.
Which
After
is strange to say, because usually I'm like, man, time is flying. Not that I have a problem with it dragging. I just find it odd.
It's a little weird. It's a little weird. Because I think part of it is because we've been posting episodes, but we haven't been recording because we've been occupied.
Right. It's definitely been weird not recording.
Yeah. We had 2 weeks off. Granted, I still do, I still did a lot, and I still did a lot. I did a Kaiju Conversation live, and then that became a bonus episode that I edited, and I had 2 Kaiju weeklies since our last recording, and then I had a Monsters with Attitude stream, and I had a Chill with Kaiju Kim stream, and I had a Chill with Kaiju Kim vlog that I did over 3 days. I haven't really stopped.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I edited like 2 videos at 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 3.
Someone's going a little crazy.
3, 3, 2, 2. It's 2. I edited 2 videos.
3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2.
It's not funny.
It's a little funny.
But yeah, I've been continuing to do content, but admittedly this last week has been very
interesting.
Long. Very long.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into it, but yeah, no, it's been a long week. Long week. But we are here. We're better, and we are ready to go.
Yes.
Speaking of ready to...
Have you watched any Tokusatsu?
I've watched a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so, okay. I've watched a lot of short films, which is kind of funny. So at G-Fest, which everybody heard last week, I got a Blu-ray from Haraguchi-san, director of Ultraman Blazar. He directed a short...
You mean Taguchi?
Taguchi, sorry.
Kiyotaka Taguchi.
Taguchi-san brought a Blu-ray that you could purchase that had his entry into the Teleston compilation film titled Female Weapon 701. So, it's a reference to Female Scorpion, which was pretty cool.
Literally none of the G-Fest audience is going to get that reference.
Yeah, but I got it because of you, so thank you, Rex. So I watched that. I watched both versions. There's the Teleston cut, which is like missing 2 minutes of footage, and then there's the extended cut, which basically just includes a back and forth between a girlfriend and her boyfriend, played by the actor who does Juggless Juggler. And he's cheating on her, and she literally catches him cheating on her as she's fighting the giant monster, and it's a whole thing. But on that Blu-ray was also 2 other short films that he had done called Zone, which was a kaiju short film, and then a zombie short film called Delta. So I watched all 3 of those. Those were pretty cool. I mean, they're short films, low budget. There's not a huge story, as to be expected, but it was pretty cool to watch them. The Delta one was the craziest because it was like an ex-girlfriend and a side lover and a mother fighting over this guy. And it was really weird. It was really weird, but it was fun, to say the least. And Zone was pretty cool. I like the concept of Zone. It was like this quarantine zone that these military guys were going to, kill this monster in. So I watched those, and I watched 2 zombie movies, which I'm noticing a lot of my tokusatsu now is just zombie movies.
Yeah.
Earlier this year, I watched Zombie Self-Defense Force, and then I watched Girls, Gangsters, and Zombies. I've watched... Actually, those are the only 2. Oh, no, and then Stacy Attacked the Schoolgirl Zombies. So I've watched those 3, and then I ended up watching the late 90s movie Wild Zero, which is a very weird movie. Very weird.
I've been meaning to check that one out. Because that's the one where it's like the rock band, like it's the rock, like that Japanese rock band.
And they're an actual rock band. They're just playing themselves.
It's real actors playing themselves.
Yes, and it's Guitar Wolf.
Right,
Guitar
yes.
Wolf. Yeah. And it's funny. It's very funny.
I want to watch it.
And then I also watched one called Miss Zombie, which is this 2013 black and white, like artsy film.
Oh yeah.
That kind of explores the dehumanization of this half zombie, half human. Which was pretty interesting. It was kind of dark and gruesome. Like they cover the topics of like abuse and rape and a bunch of stuff, and it was a very heavy movie.
Right.
It was shot in black and white. It's a very quiet movie, very atmospheric in some parts, which was pretty interesting. But besides those, I actually watched some J-horror. I watched 2 Nakata films, actually. I watched his entry into the Scary True Stories. On the DVD, it's titled Curse, Death, and Spirits, which is 3 short films: The Cursed Doll, The Inn Where the Ghost Lives, and the titles on the DVDs are not the titles that I recognize. Like the Inn Where the Ghost Lives is not what it's actually called on the DVD, but that's what I remembered it by. But there's another one, and those were his first J-horror films, shorts. So it was really cool to watch his first things. The Inn Where the Ghost Lives is actually like the pre Sadako, with a girl in a white dress with long black dark hair. Which was really cool to see, and that's in the segment "The Inn Where the Ghost Lives." And there's actually a video recorder involved with that story, which was really cool. And those were his. What's funny is those got their own release from the actual Scary True Stories DVD. I guess it's because Nakata is such a huge name that like
maybe
those would be profitable solo. But I also watched his 2007 Lafcadio Hearn inspired film Kaidan, which is his only period piece J-horror, which very much felt like I was watching a 1960s horror film from Japan, which was really cool. So I got to watch those. That was actually a lot of fun. I'm curious, Rex, and thanks to Nathan, we love Nathan of the Monster Island Film Vault. He got me finally through the second disc of Ultraman 80. So I've watched now 13 or 14 episodes of Ultraman 80. So now I'm on disc 3.
And force you to watch them?
No, we did a watch along where we watched the first 2 episodes of that disc. And then that night I ended up watching like 2 more, and then today I watched like the remaining ones.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm hoping that this becomes something we keep doing, and that way I can,
Maybe
get
you'll
through.
finally watch Ultraman.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping I can get through 80, and then I'm going to stop Ultraman for a bit, watch Inazumon, because that's only 25 episodes. I should be able to get that done in like a few days. And then it's Ultraman Tiga, and then the Tiga side story, and then Dyna side story and its movie, and then Gaia, its side story and movie, and then Zerth, which I can get done in the evening, and then Neos.
Right.
And then it's Cosmos, which will probably put me at a hard stop again for a long time with 63 episodes and 3 movies.
To be fair, I do hear Cosmos is actually really good.
I've heard the opposite, so we'll see. But
See,
yeah,
I
no,
used to
I'm
hear the
hoping
opposite, and nowadays I hear it's one of the best Ultra series. So
that's weird.
that's what
See,
I thought.
I'm hoping that I can end up getting through. I'd like to finish all of the 1900s Ultra shows. I have a lot of tokusatsu I'm planning, especially after recent life events. I should be able to hopefully
Right.
watch a ton more tokusatsu. But what
Right.
about you, Rex? I've just spouted out for about 20 minutes what I'm doing
boy.
tokusatsu wise. What do you got for us?
Well, I've actually watched a decent bit, I'd say. On the TV front, I've been continuing Ultraman Max. I'm on to, just today, I watched episode 30, so I've only got 9 episodes left of that, so getting close to the end. I believe last time I mentioned that I finished V3, I think.
I don't remember you saying you finished V3, but I know you said you were getting close.
I'm pretty sure I did, but just in case I didn't, yeah, I finished V3. It had some of the best last 10 episodes of Showa Rider. Not that I've seen a huge amount of Showa Rider, but I mean more than some people.
Yeah.
And with that, I've now started Kamen Rider Agito.
Oh, nice. I've heard a lot of good stuff about Agito.
Yes, I'm currently 20 episodes in already somehow.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how. It does not feel like I'm 20 episodes in at all. Outside of that, in terms of movies, if we're keeping on the Kamen Rider track, I've rewatched both Kamen Rider the Next and Shin Kamen Rider.
Okay. So, you rewatched... Is it the first that's more of a drama?
The first is, yeah, more of, like, it's an action film with, like, some a romance element.
Gotcha.
Whereas the next completely drops that love interest character, never mentioning her, and is a J-horror film.
Well, we like stuff like that.
Which also features Kamen Rider V3.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
His character kind of sucks in the movie, though.
Oh,
But
is he, like,
to be-
sidelined?
I mean, yeah. I mean, honestly, Hayato is very sidelined in Kamen Rider the Next. I mean, to be honest, that duology, the weakest thing of the first and especially the next, is how it treats its free Kamen Riders. Hongo was pretty good in the first film, but there's some. I questioned certain writing decisions surrounding him in the second film that kind of paint him out to be low-key a pedo. I don't think that's the intent, but that's kind of how it comes across.
Oh.
Ichimonji kind of sucks in the first. He's okay in the next, but he's barely in it. And then V3 is just like... He's nothing like V3.
Huh.
Well, okay, he's a little bit like V3. He's a little bit like the original. Well, not very much.
Okay.
It's certainly an interesting movie. I'll give it that. It's not the worst Kamen Rider film I've seen, despite what some people say.
I wish I could comment more, but I've watched one Kamen Rider thing, period.
Big fan.
Then again, though, I did enjoy that one Kamen Rider film I watched. Best of the Shin movies.
Yeah, outside of that, kind of going on that J-horror track, if you will. Obviously, last recording, I mentioned that I had rewatched Ring and seen Pulse. I'm not going to go into detail on those, because that exists. That's a bonus. Go check it out.
Go check out bonus episode 12, Yamazaki Exhibit J-Horror Weekend and G-Fest, oh my.
Yes. But outside of that, prior to those screenings, I had also watched a couple other J-horror films,
Oh?
including 2005's Meatball Machine.
Okay, that's on my list to purchase. I've seen the trailer, and it looks bloody as, like... I know it's a body gore movie.
Yeah.
What's it like? What'd you think of it?
I actually quite enjoyed it. I was surprised to find out it's actually a love story.
Interesting. I thought it was just like this meat grinder, like body gore.
I mean, that's definitely a part of it.
Right.
Yeah, no, it was actually a pretty fun film.
Okay.
I'd seen the short film, the original Meatball Machine short film, like very early this year.
Uh-huh.
And I'd been meaning to check out Meatball Machine for a while. So I'm glad I finally did.
Okay.
And then following that, I also watched this short film. Some places say it's a sequel short film, but if I remember right, it's actually a prequel. It's called Meatball Machine Reject of Death, and it's directed by Mr. Yoshihiro Nishimura.
Oh, well, wasn't he like an EP on Meatball Machine?
I don't know if he was an executive, but like I know he was like a special effects artist on the first Meatball Machine. Actually, Keita Amamiya worked on the first Meatball Machine, I found out.
Really?
Yeah, he's credited in the movie. And I was like, what? No one told me about this.
I need to...
I think, if I remember right, some of his concept art for the movie is like a bonus feature as well.
Interesting.
Because he did some of the character designs.
Right. Oh, yeah, I could get Meatball Machine for like $20. I need to grab that.
Yeah. Eventually I'll check out the final Meatball Machine thing, Meatball Machine Kodoku, but haven't had a chance yet.
And it looks like the DVD that's in the United States has Reject or Death on it and the original Meatball Machine.
Yeah. I also watched the first guinea pig film.
Okay, that has been something I have been wanting to maybe watch because I'm going to like start going more into J-horror as well as like action and I'm not gonna watch Saw probably ever because I don't like needles. Am I gonna like just cutting open people? Like I can't watch that.
Hey, I love the Saw movies, man. I am hyped for Saw 10.
I can't. Like, you know that clip of, I don't remember what actor, but the guy shoves a tube down his throat and like the eels go in his stomach. That clip. It's not from a Saw movie, but it's from a movie. Have you seen that clip before?
Wait, describe it again.
A very famous actor, I don't remember who it is, but he is chained to a table or a bed, and this doctor shoves a tube down his throat into his stomach and lets eels go into his body.
I have not seen that film, but from what I'm searching up, it looks like a Gore Verbinski movie.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
No way.
I have never heard of this movie before. What you're describing to me sounds weird.
Now, it's just that scene. Like, there's a whole thing to that scene that...
Right.
Is it... It's not The Weatherman. It's... I don't think it's a Gore Verbinski movie.
On Google, it's saying it's A Cure for Wellness is the name of the movie.
That sounds right.
I've never seen it, so I wouldn't know.
Oh, it is directed by Gore Verbinski. And it's got... Who's the main actor? I don't know if this is it. Well, so the whole reason I brought that up was that didn't do anything to me. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with like death and stuff. But the moment somebody gets cut and I'm not talking stabbed. I can do stabbed, but cut. That's when I can't do it. Like in Pet Sematary, the thing that I can't watch in that movie is not anything besides when the boy. You've seen the original Pet Sematary, right?
I have not, but I know the gist of the movie.
Have you watched the remake?
Yes.
Okay, so this probably isn't going to be a spoiler. The old man, his death. That in the original movie, at least. So it's a razor blade on his Achilles heel,
right?
And then his mouth gets slit, and then So I'm fine with the boy biting the throat. That I can live with, but it's the cutting of the heel,
Achilles tendon. Is that the
and
issue?
the cutting of the mouth, and then the mouth dropping even farther. That's what I can't do. That's when I get squeamish.
Right. So,
but like I said, I can do slicing of blades going into people. I just can't do that.
Right. So the guinea pig movies, from what I understand, it's interesting because from what I hear, some of the later ones kind of play up a comical aspect to them.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting, whereas this first guinea pig film, it does not have any of that. It's pretty much it's you get your opening text of that a group of guys have kidnapped this young girl, and then it's just a compilation of different torture scenes, essentially.
Is there a story?
Not really.
So it's quite literally just torture porn.
Yes, it's 40 minutes. It's 20, 30 or so minutes of the guys slapping, kicking, beating her. It's a little section of him pulling her nail or something.
Okay.
And then at the end they stab a needle through her eye.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the only part where I'm whoa.
So I might, because that happened. Were you the one? No, you weren't. But there's a movie called Truth or Dare, right? Is it Truth or Dare? Yes.
I know that movie.
And have you watched it?
I've seen half of it.
Okay.
Once when I was falling asleep.
So there's a scene that has to do with an eyeball. And that was the one thing I couldn't do in that movie. Everything else I was fine with, the fire. Wait, never mind. You haven't seen that far. But there's a lot of that I'm fine with. It's just, again, I can't do this. If somebody gets sliced and they die, I'm fine. But it's when they get sliced and they're still alive and they're having to deal with the fact that their body's hanging open. So you watched Guinea Pig Devil's Experiment?
Yes.
Okay.
Which thankfully was only 43 minutes long, so it's I don't have to just watch what is essentially a waste of time torture porn film.
Gotcha.
For 90 minutes, because that would be hell. Not even just not even because I'm necessarily terribly disturbed by it. It's just that it's dull. The most I thought of the movie was there's a couple establishing shots that kind of look nice, and that's about it. Okay.
Are you going to watch? Because it looks like there's a total of one.
There's 5 or 6 of them, or 7 or something.
There's 4 more after that one. Are you going to watch those?
Maybe. It depends. Not for a while. I mean, I'm a little interested in how comedic, how they're taking it comedically, and there's some morbid curiosity of A, does this actually get any better, and B, how are you going to one up the effects? Will it actually disturb me?
Right. And then my follow-up question to that would be, are you going to watch the 4 American films?
Oh yeah, there's an American guinea pig series. I forget about that.
Yeah, it looks like there's only 4. You've got American Guinea Pig Bo Keat, Boutique of Guts and Gore, American Guinea Pig Blood Shock, American Guinea Pig The Songs of Solomon, which I've heard of that one. I've heard that one's probably the best, to my understanding. And then American Guinea Pig Sacrifice.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. We'll figure that out another day if I watch that or not.
There's also the Slaughter Special, which is a best of showcase.
Huh. A best of. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. So you didn't care for it?
No, not really.
Okay. Interesting.
The only noteworthy scene is like the end with the eye. And that's about it.
See, I feel like if I watch it, I'm going to be like, that's pretty all right. And then we're going to find out that I'm a demented, twisted weirdo.
Bro,
because I'm going to be like...
It's just like, there's like the first 20 minutes of half of the thing is just some like bad actors pretending to be like gangsters, like beating up like this one woman. And it's not even shot interestingly or anything. It's just like one like lingering shot of them beating her up.
Oh boy.
And then it'll like fade to black, and then they'll beat her up a different way in another lingering shot that lingers for like 5 minutes. And it's like,
interesting.
But at least, I actually did watch. Well, maybe this isn't quite Tokusatsu, but I feel like this has some relevance. I watched the first 2 of 3 films in Takashi Yamazaki's Always Sunset of Third Street trilogy.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
So without like going too heavy into those, because there is one film that I didn't bring up that I wanted to bring up because I want to talk to you about it. How were they? And specifically, how was the opening of the second one?
Well, the first one, I didn't enjoy as much as the second one, but the first one, it's a good, solid little family drama set in like the 1960s with some fun energy and good comical beats. I particularly really liked Shinichi Tsutsumy's character as Mr. Suzuki. He is so funny. It's like the male lead. You remember like One Missed Call?
Yes.
You know the male lead in that movie?
I recall him, yes.
Yeah, it's that actor. He is hilarious.
Oh.
He is hilarious. This movie and another movie he's in, absolutely hilarious actor. And he's so good in this movie, in both these movies. But yeah, like, I didn't enjoy it as much as the second one, but also it's because I would probably, when it comes to things like this, with like trilogies, the first movie is where I need to get invested, and then I'll be invested by the second film. I don't know if that made any sense.
Well, I think it's obvious why everybody would be invested in the second film if you're listening to this podcast.
Yeah. But so the first movie, there's like a love story that there's a resolution to it, sort of, but it very much leaves the door open for a sequel. And yeah, the second movie, oh my god, the second movie was absolutely amazing. I adored the second movie. It hit me in the gut twice emotionally, man.
Is it one of those rare occurrences where the sequel's better than the original?
I would say so. I would absolutely say I loved the second movie a lot more than the first.
Okay.
Like, I genuinely adored the second movie. It had the humor of the first movie, but I was more invested in the characters, so it was even funnier this time around. Yeah. I was by this point, I'm invested in the character's story, so I'm more interested in the drama going on. Whereas in the first one, I'm taking my time sort of getting into the drama, and both of these movies are really long, so the first one's I kind of felt it was dragging a bit,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the second movie, because I'm invested, that's less of an issue. And it was an emotional roller coaster, honestly, man.
Interesting. Okay.
And yeah, that first scene, my oh my, what a way to open your movie.
So, speaking of emotional movies, I've already talked about a movie that we've both watched for about 2 hours, but I don't know your opinions. So, I do want to hear your opinions on a very relevant topic to the discussion of atomic energy. And that's Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer.
Oh, that's right. We both have seen that.
So I'm not going to talk about it because there's a 2.5 hour stream that turned into a bonus episode where you can listen to me and Jack talk about it. And we go pretty deep. We get pretty deep into that discussion.
Right.
So I just want to hear your thoughts and then go ahead. Do you have any other tokusatsu you've watched?
Not really, bar the title of the episode.
Okay. So go ahead and give me your thoughts on Christopher Nolan, and then we're going to talk about the main topic.
Oh God, I don't even think I can do Oppenheimer justice. It's a brilliant film. I was kind of just, I wasn't as flawed by the movie as you, but like I'm just kind of crazy, so that's normal for me. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed the film, and that ending definitely. I'm not doing the film justice at all.
I'm waiting.
Any of my words, like I don't know how to talk about it. Really, I feel like no matter what I say, I'm not going to do it any amount of justice.
So okay, can you give a Spark Notes version, like 30 seconds? Overall
What?
thoughts.
I loved Cillian Murphy in the role. I love pretty much every actor is giving their A game, particularly like obviously Murphy, Robert Downey Jr. especially, but even like Jason Clarke, who I was surprised to see in the film, is they're all giving their A game. Nolan's direction is top notch. Like he's once again got that, just, I don't know how to describe it. He's just got an eye for filmmaking. There's an energy to Oppenheimer that's just, and specifically with like its pacing, where somehow it feels really quick despite being 3 hours long. It's got incredible sound design that is just amazing to experience on the big screen, particularly that scene. And yeah, I don't know how to really do it justice.
Okay. Well, that's a Spark Notes version. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and go into the main topic of today's episode.
Ooh. And I wonder what that could be.
Today we're talking about oh
man. Not this.
Hang on, let me look back at my notes real quick. What are we talking about? Are we talking about verses? I feel like I heard the term verses before.
I wish we were talking about verses.
So this isn't as good as verses. Okay.
That's not what I was saying, but we all love verses.
Shoot, I don't have it in my notes. Rex, can you help me here? God, I'm always so unprepared for these titles. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you're a failure. We all know this.
Damn.
What? What?
Right for the jugular.
Yeah? Is there something wrong with it?
No.
Exactly.
So Rex, what are we covering? I'm afraid I'm not even ready now.
Well, August is a funny month because we very recently in July got the trailer for Godzilla Minus One. And
Right.
in anticipation for Godzilla Minus One, you and I decided, wouldn't it be great if we started watching Takashi Yamazaki films? And
I thought we made that decision like months ago.
yeah, but we decided to schedule episodes to maybe have even a themed month.
Oh, that's right. Are we
in August?
Are we covering one of the Always movies?
No, because you're a failure. Today, dear listeners, in this first proper episode of Yamazaki Month.
Oh, we're covering Godzilla Minus One. We got the print early, right?
No.
Oh.
Absolute degenerate.
Is it
Shut
Ghost
up.
Book? Ghost Story?
No. I don't think there's even any English translation of that, let alone an official one.
Is it War for the Archimedites?
Does
that mean I was right?
No. But racist, maybe.
Are we? Oh, we're gonna cover one of the rides.
No, sadly not.
Oh. This is awkward.
Now, if you'll stop interrupting me, then maybe I can say what we're watching.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Let's return back to you. What are we talking about?
Well, today we're talking about the 2002 Takashi
Juvenile?
Yamazaki. Oh, shut up. Takashi Yamazaki's 2002 film, Returner.
Oh!
Yes.
Let me make sure I watched that movie. I don't know if I did. Oh!
You're a failure.
I got notes! I did watch the movie.
You're still a failure.
Thanks, Rex. Your confidence in my ability to succeed always helps me.
Yeah, because I have no confidence in you, so I have to do everything around here.
I don't know who pooped in your cereal, but you're going for a jugular today.
No one actually, yeah, all the Barbie people on my bus did.
Oh.
That's so loud, man.
So yeah, today we are covering the 2002 film Returner. So
that's what I said.
Yeah, I know. I was just reiterating what you said. So Rex, how do you want to go about this? Do we want to talk about the movie and then the research we did, or do you want to? How do you want to do this?
Well, I'm curious because I found a little bit, but I didn't find very much surrounding like the background and creation of the movie. So I was kind of wondering what you may have found.
Okay. So I did find a little bit. Okay. So this was Yamazaki's second film ever. His first film was Juvenile. And what's interesting is he brought the exact same crew from Juvenile onto Returner, and a lot of his crew would come back. Actors. Even some, one of the main actors,
Anne Suzuki.
Anne Suzuki, who played Millie, Miley. Is it Miley?
Millie,
okay.
Because it's pronounced Millie in the film.
She was in Juvenile. And what's interesting is actually a lot of Yamazaki's crew is brought back in all of his films. A lot of his crew members are in his Always trilogy, Eternal Zero,
Yeah.
All of those movies.
I mean, Anne Suzuki, I think, has even appeared in like some of his more recent movies. Like, I want
Ghost
to say
Book.
she was in Ghost Book. Yeah,
She was. She played the mother. Yes.
Okay. Yes. I couldn't remember if it was her or someone else who was in Ghost Book.
I did my research on the cast and crew.
I don't doubt that.
So what Yamazaki in his production diaries commentary brought up that this film started production a year and a half after his first film finished. So it was a long gap for him, so he kind of had to get back into the swing of things. I actually haven't seen Juvenile, but to my understanding, it is a science fiction movie as well.
I mean, what's interesting is there wasn't a definitive source for this saying that this was absolutely true, but I was reading some rumors that Returner may have actually been originally envisioned as a sequel to Juvenile.
Interesting.
So yeah, there wasn't really any details past that point. And then, as well as that, I also did read that sometime after Juvenile, I want to say before Returner, from what I could gather, because the article was in like the source it listed was from 2001. It sounded like Yamazaki had an idea for a film that would have been titled Nue, which would have been an original work, presumably based on a yokai of that name.
Okay.
But due to like budgetary reasons, that film was never made, and instead we eventually got Returner.
Right. And what's interesting about Juvenile is it was Yamazaki's first film, and that kind of birthed his production company, Robot Communications, which I think is pretty cool. All of his films have been through Toho as well. So Toho worked on Juvenile, they worked on Returner, the Always films, Minus One, obviously.
The Always films, obviously, as well.
Right. So, I would love to watch Juvenile. It looks pretty interesting. It's just never been released stateside, so I've never watched it.
Right.
But because
all I know about Juvenile is what the little robot looks like.
Right. But production for Returner started October 17th of 2001, and they filmed until January 21st of 2002. So they had about a 3-month production period.
That must have been after the Nue idea got scrapped.
Yeah. And then, of course, it was released August 31st of 2002, and it opened at number 1 at the box office, which it actually beat out, I believe, a Studio Ghibli film.
Oh, really?
I think, if I remember correctly.
I know it beat out, like, Star Wars Episode 2 and the live-action Resident Evil movie.
Let me double check. I might be thinking of something else that I was reading. I was looking at the wrong thing. Like you said, it beat out Resident Evil, Star Wars 2 Attack of the Clones. And then it actually did get a U.S. theatrical release October 17th of 2003, so a little over a year later. And it got an English dub, and that dub's obviously on the DVD. Interesting thing. So at one point I was looking at the Roku print, and I don't know if this was a bug or not, but the Roku print was playing the Japanese audio and the English dub at the same time with the subtitles. So I'm hearing one thing that I don't understand, then I'm hearing another thing that I do understand, and reading something that's completely different. It was probably one of the worst experiences ever. Thank God I have the DVD for this.
So is it like you started watching it like that, but then switched to the DVD?
I watched it on DVD, then while I was reading, I was watching it on the streaming until I was done with my research, and then I was going to go back to the DVD. So like half the movie granted, I'd already watched it, so it wasn't awful. But half the movie, I listened to both audio tracks at the same time. It was,
that's something.
But the film, while a co-production with Toho, it was also shot at Daiei Studios, which I thought was really cool. I believe it was their Kyoto branch. But towards the end of filming, like end of December, early January, they actually ran out of funds, so they were just trying to scrap together what they could from sets. And what's funny is the stuff they filmed at the end was all of the studio filming. So that was like your indoor fights and your Tibet like opening sequence. All of that was when they had no funds. But I still think it looks really good for their production. Mm-hmm.
Damn. That's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah. I also read that the production designer for this film actually doesn't like science fiction movies. But he did like make it a point to say he enjoyed having the ability to let his creativity flow and be able to produce the science fiction stuff he did. It was a little difficult because it was all like this brand new stuff. So they kind of took inspiration from things that already existed.
Right. Which you can definitely see in the film.
Yeah, this film does not take its future very, very like outlandish.
Oh, and then I also like it wears its inspirations on its sleeves.
That's true. We're going to get into that especially. And then the last thing I read is they actually went about the action sequences a little differently in this film. Traditionally, like you would hire a company to do your stunts, right?
Right.
I think of like, is it the Japan Action Heroes? That's the
Japan Action Club, and there's like AAC Stunts, which does a lot of like the stunts for Garo. It's the main Gamera, Heisei Gamera suit actor. And he also played like King Ghidorah as a part of like AAC Stunts.
So
yeah, those
that's the typical way that works in Japan, right?
Yeah.
But for Returner, their action director went and hired specific people from different companies to do the action for this film. He refused to go and pick one like company, which was very different for Japan at the time. And he ended up having to like fight with Yamazaki because Yamazaki refused to allow actors to be on strings during the action. So they had to like use creative ways to like get the actors on some sort of harness to like get them to fly and jump dramatically.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they ended up finding a way to make it work, which I think it ended up looking pretty good, all things considered. And this film, especially during so I found out Yamazaki is known for saying, in the future, we're going to fix this. And that's him basically saying, we'll fix this in post, which is kind of like the no-no for new directors, but also thinking about Yamazaki and how effects heavy he is, like, that doesn't surprise me.
He might be the one director I can think who can get away with it because he actually
fixes it in post. Yeah. Because he was the writer, director, and effects director for this movie.
Right.
And then his two companies, Robot Communications, his production company, and Shirogumi, the company that he helps run for a post-production house, worked on this film. So he definitely at least knows what he's doing when it comes to post-production effects. It's kind of funny to think that people are saying Minus One and Oppenheimer are going to be a good double feature because you have Nolan who's like, get it on film, like it has to be on the camera, and then you have Yamazaki that's very, we'll do this in post. So both directors have very different opinions on VFX and SFX.
Right.
So yeah, and he was known for like at least pointing out on set, like, we're going to do this in the future. So he had to explain in detail, like what the actors were looking at and what they were going to be doing and whatnot.
Well, if he has a good grasp on and is able to properly plan out what he's going to do in post, then already that's less of an issue than a lot of like Hollywood directors who, when they say, "Oh, we'll just," or producers when they're like, "Oh, we can just fix this in post," when they don't really know a lot about VFX. Yamazaki, with a VFX background, potentially may have been a bit better.
Right.
Especially when you consider, I think this film only had about roughly, I want to say it was like 260 VFX shots was the number I read.
Yes. And while some of those shots aren't the best, there's actually some pretty decent CGI in this movie. But like, it definitely helps that Yamazaki, like, his first credit was on Sweet Home, which he did special effects for. He also worked on both Echo Azaka films. He worked on Parasite Eve, and like,
I mean,
later
he got his start for Juzo Itami's filmography, essentially.
Right. And then he did the effects and was director and writer on like Juvenile, like we already said, the Always trilogy, Space Battleship Yamato, Parasite Part 1 and 2, Lupin the Third, the First, Ghost Book, and most recently, or coming up, Godzilla Minus One. But also his production house, Shirogumi, that he didn't found, but he's one of the main heads of it. They worked on films like House. They worked on that. Hypnosis, Ultraman Saga, Attack on Titan 1 and 2, Shin Godzilla, Gintama 2, Shin Ultraman, and Shin Kamen Rider. So Yamazaki is definitely one of the most qualified when it comes to your VFX.
Right.
But that's really all I have on the development of this film. There's also an alternative version for TV that was cut down to 95 minutes from the original 116-minute runtime. That just basically cuts out the Chinese Yakuza mafia subplot. That's all removed, and it just kind of streamlines it a bit.
Right.
So, I mean, that's all I really had. The rest I have are notes on like the film itself. So unless you've got something you would like to add, I think
honestly,
I'm ready
the
to.
only like minor behind the scenes fact that I have that you haven't already mentioned is that like just like they use the same sort of one of the same color grading techniques as Godzilla Final Wars. Which
Okay,
is
that's a perfect segue to what I want to talk about a little bit here. So there was a scene in this movie where I was like, wait a minute, I've seen this before. Specifically the motorcycle chase sequence where the Yakuza is chasing our main characters on a motorcycle. They're in a car.
Yeah.
But the cinematography, the editing, and the action that takes place towards the end of the chase, all is very similar to Godzilla Final Wars. So I can't help but wonder, and this film is very, very American. Something that Kitamura was known for was kind of being more of a Western director than an Eastern director. And this film, I think, is a prime example of that. I really am curious if Kitamura saw Returner and was kind of influenced by it for Final Wars to an extent.
I definitely got Kitamura vibes from a lot of the action in this film. I mean, it didn't help that the main character wears like a black leather trench coat, which is basically a Kitamura trademark at this point. Given like that's what his character in Versus was dressed as.
And
that's
Alive.
Half the characters in Alive are wearing black trench coats.
Right.
And then obviously in Final Wars, all the Exilians are in like the long black leather trench coats.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, not only that, just like the Hong Kong style martial arts action as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely more Hong Kong in Matrix-y, but it just added to that Final Wars or Kitamura vibe, really, that I was getting.
Right. And I mean, in all fairness, this movie's basically E.T. meets Matrix meets Terminator meets Independence Day meeting a Yakuza film. Like, it's basically a hodgepodge of all those. And it's very obvious that they're taking influences from those. There's even a, like, at the end of the film, we're jumping ahead here, but one of the characters is fading away from her time travel, much like Back to the Future. And there's even a character in this movie called Dr. Brown, which is Dr. Emmett Brown of Back to the Future, played by Christopher Lloyd. So I can't help but think that this movie's kind of a love letter to, like, these popular science fiction films. Yeah.
Oh, I definitely got the Matrix and Terminator vibes especially. I didn't quite pick up on the E.T. vibes until the very end, where I'm like, wait, this alien looks a lot like E.T.
Right. And then Independence Day, just kind of the way the ships are designed to me, kind of, and even the aliens are kind of like that Independence-ish.
It's a bit of a mix of Independence Day and the E.T.
Yeah. So it's a hodgepodge of a lot of different science fiction that I'm accustomed to.
Right.
But, like, this stuff shows back up in, I mean, Final Wars is basically Returner, just with kaiju involved. Minus the time travel.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's interesting
and
to see
the whole Yakuza Chinese triad type deal.
Right. So, you know, it's really weird to see these two movies, and they both kind of do the same thing, and they both clearly have the same influences. And I didn't even know they had the same color grading, but now that you bring that up, like, that adds a whole
It's like the same technique. It's like a bleach pass? I don't remember the exact name. Hang on. Okay, it's called a bleach bypass. Essentially what it does, it's typically like a chemical effect, although given like Final Wars and presumably Returner?
Returner was shot on film.
Okay, I wasn't sure if Returner was film or digital.
In behind the scenes footage, you can see the camera they're using, and it's very clearly a film camera, not a digital camera.
I wasn't sure. It looked like it could have been either. So in this case, it's a chemical. But yeah, essentially, it's like, I think it's like you put like a black and white image over a color image or something, and essentially the final result is reduced saturation, but increased contrast and grain, which is definitely the look that this film has.
Right.
And like similar technique is used on like, it was actually first used in film by Japanese filmmaker Konichi Kawa. And
really,
because it was essentially invented by a Dai cameraman for his film.
Which film is this?
Her Brother from 1960.
Okay.
And it would go on to be used in many other films, such as Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan or 97's Alien Resurrection.
Okay, yeah, because it's definitely a look that I at least think of, like,
it's also used in Beat Takeshi's Zatoichi film, Godzilla Final Wars, The Machinist with Christian Bale, and even a Kamen Rider x Kamen Rider Zero's movie, or Kamen Rider O's.
Interesting.
Well, you know.
Yeah,
and the War of the Worlds remake with Tom Cruise.
That I definitely could see, because that's a very
It's definitely got that same look as most of the other films I mentioned.
So, you know, it's very much a 2000s movie, and we're going to talk about that as we progress here.
Oh, yes. Yes, it is.
I mean, if you're ready to, I can just transition right here into that intense opening that we have.
Gladly.
Yeah, so we get the film starts off very quick, and it doesn't. So typically, your science fiction films like to drag the opening with exposition a lot,
Right.
whereas this film very much throws you. It throws you into the action, and Yamazaki
doesn't give you much context until later.
No, this is one of those films that, I mean, Yamazaki kind of expects you to ask enough questions that as you follow the story, you get the answers you are asking, and you can follow along. More so than that, even. The film, I mean, the editing in this movie is very... I found Yamazaki's editing and angles and motion of the camera very interesting in this film. It's very fluid, but very fast.
Yeah. I mean, definitely the fluidness kind of, to me, seems like it's kind of like just a trademark of his style. Because you kind of notice that I definitely noticed that in the first Always Sunset movie. There's a fluidness to the movement of his camera. And even given it's a drama movie, I'm kind of used to not necessarily all still shots, but I have been watching a lot of Beat Takeshi movies recently. So
right. There's a lot
kind of getting used to that.
When I think of drama, I think of Bong Joon-ho films, and they're all very fixed camera shots that don't move.
Yes. Whereas Yamazaki, I mean, he still does that, obviously, but at the same time, there are quite a few moments in the Always Sunset. I can't quite say trilogy yet because I still need to watch the third one, but there's definitely the camera is a lot more fluid and moving than I would have expected.
Right. And so basically what we're seeing is this destroyed Earth, or wherever they're at. We don't really know yet. There's a bunch of refugees taking shelter in this place, and this girl is being shot at by these aliens, and so she jumps into this what appears to be a machine. Very much in the same style as one of the time machines from the Terminator.
I wonder if it's a time machine.
And then we see her... Is it this scene where we see her plunge? Or is that in a later sequence when she's explaining what she was doing? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, she does jump in in the opening. We see her jump in.
And then we cut to...
Title card.
Now, one thing I did find interesting about the opening title sequence is they very clearly market it as a Takashi Yamazaki film. And this is his second movie, so I thought that was really interesting that they were a Takashi Yamazaki film.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's the first credit. Yeah.
I'm sure it's the only credit in the opening.
And it's very clear. It stays in the frame for a pretty decent long time. So I just thought that was weird that they would credit him so prominently as his second movie. Obviously now, that's a whole nother thing. Takashi Yamazaki is a household name, basically, in Japan. So to think that by his second movie, they were already prominently displaying who he was makes me kind of understand that he was destined to kind of be that big director that he is now. So we're following the title sequence. We're put on a boat where some human trafficking is going on. If I'm reading the room right.
Yes.
Some gang members. Some of them are members of the Yakuza. In the dub specifically, and I think in the subs as well, they just say mafia in the mafia.
Right. I mean, from what it was more like the Chinese triads, really.
Right. Because, I mean, there's a lot of characters in this movie that are Chinese and not Japanese.
I mean,
which
the
is
main actor is a Taiwanese-Japanese actor, even.
But in the movie, he says he's from China, which I thought was an interesting. It's interesting to see a character who, as an actor, he's half Taiwanese, half Japanese, and he plays a Chinese character. And your villain's the full Japanese individual. I think that's a very interesting angle to go at for a Japanese film. But in this opening sequence, we see these kids, and we're very quickly introduced to who our villain is.
Yes,
because he ends up shooting a kid, and everybody's like, "Why'd you do that?" Like, they're all shocked that he would do this. So it's very quickly established that he's cold to the bone, like he's a heartless monster. And I appreciate that because it helps establish how awful of a person he is. Like, there's no question
that there's stakes too. It's like, man will kill kids. He doesn't care,
right? Kind of like he'll do whatever he wants to do. Like, nobody stops him,
right?
And throughout the film, he's very trigger happy. Like,
the
amount of people he kills
anyone.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see that. But as this whole sequence happens, they're ambushed by our main character, who is like this top assassin. Like, he dispatches everybody throughout this boat pretty quickly and pretty easily.
Yeah, he's even set up traps.
And it's very obvious, like it's influenced by The Matrix.
Especially like the slow motion kick.
Yes, and the fact that he looks like Neo.
Yeah,
it's obvious what they're doing here.
And also the longish hair also reminded me of Tak Sakaguchi from Versus.
Yeah, I got that too. I kind of said, I wrote jokingly, like, he looks like the Japanese Orlando Bloom. Because he also kind of has that personality that Will Turner had in the Pirates movies, which I thought was kind of funny. But beyond that point, our main character kills everybody pretty easily and pretty quickly. But eventually he gets stuck and surprised by our main villain, who he ends up holding at gunpoint, and that's when he finds out that it's the person that he's been searching for a long time, only for somebody to sneak up behind him and for him to lose his focus on our villain and ends up shooting a kid. And when he turns around, he's already escaped onto a helicopter, in which our main character tries to shoot down, but fails. And if you want to take over from here a little bit.
Yeah, so after Mizuguchi disappears, he's suddenly teleported to a helicopter.
Actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but during this sequence, they have a lot of techno music, right?
Yes.
Which was, it was undoubtedly 2000s, but it's also like, I was like, you know what? I'm down for it. Like, I love this. There's also a few musical cues that's kind of like, I'm pretty sure that's stock music.
Maybe.
That I've heard elsewhere, but I was like, you know what? We'll go with it.
Maybe. But yeah, essentially, Mizuguchi, the two fire at each other a bit, but neither hit each other. They just run out of bullets, and Mizuguchi leaves. From there, our main character, whose name is Miyamoto, takes the girl that he shot at, still alive, talks to an informant lady whom essentially raised him.
Z or Zay.
Yeah. And gets her to essentially research and find out everything she can on Mizuguchi.
Now, the way it's established, correct me if I'm wrong, Rex, but he's basically a hitman for her that she pays to kill people.
Right.
Which, by the way, she's the best character in this movie. Like, I legitimately love her character because she's kind of like that. I don't give a bleep.
Right.
Like, I know so much that I'm so far ahead of the game that nobody else knows what's going on.
Right.
And I just love her personality and everything about her. She's like the best part of this movie.
Yeah. Following this, we are taken to Miyamoto's home where Millie, whom is the girl that he shot at, wakes up, realizes that she is in the year 2002, specifically October
21st.
I think it was 20th in this scene. Because they still have a couple days.
Yes, they have 2 days. It's the 22nd that it ends.
Yeah. She realizes she's in the present and essentially tries to convince Miyamoto to help her with her objective, which she doesn't quite tell him yet. And then he kicks her out.
Which, following this, he goes shopping, and we find out that he has a love for pasta.
Oh, that's right.
In the dub, they specify noodles, and it becomes this joke throughout the movie that the girl, Millie, loves that as well,
Noodles.
but she calls it the wrong name.
It was spaghetti, though. It was not noodles.
Well, in the subtitles, they call it noodles, if I remember correctly. Or no, they say pasta. They call it pasta.
Spaghetti.
Right.
In the subtitles, they call it spaghetti.
I'm pretty sure the subs I read, they said pasta.
Near the end of the movie, he's like, it's not called al dente, it's called spaghetti.
Actually, I think I do remember that now.
Yeah.
But they do make that as a joke throughout the movie. There's a few comedic moments. I mean, this is a buddy cop movie, essentially, without the buddy cop. The duo is very much a
right
comedic duo.
Right. I mean, it's that like it's the young girl like, and then the gruff badass like man essentially. I don't know how else to describe the track. It's one that I've seen in a fair bit of Japanese media, but I can't seem to remember most of the places I've seen it. Actually, I've seen it in Kamen Rider before. Black Sun, that's right.
Well, the girl's very gruff as well. Like,
that's
she's
true.
not
that's
like
true.
Your pretty girl. She's very much I mean, she's kind of like a Linda Hamilton. Kind of Linda Hamilton.
I mean, she's more the Kyle Reese, frankly.
I mean, if we're talking plot-wise, but like, she's more the Linda Hamilton from T2 than, you know, what you would typically see.
Mm-hmm.
But no, she ends up going back to his apartment, and this is where we get this is like the beginning of the funny exchanges that they will have throughout the film.
Yeah, essentially, he finds out she's in there. They have a little exchange where they keep pointing guns at each other, and eventually she reveals that she's put a bomb on his neck. And then proves that it's a real bomb that it's a real, in quotation marks, bomb by shooting or blowing up like an empty alcohol bottle.
It's not empty. It's got alcohol in it.
Whatever. By destroying a bottle with the alleged explosive. And the two scuffle for a little bit, and eventually Miyamoto agrees to helping her with her objective.
Even though he doesn't entirely believe it.
Well, she hasn't told him what it is yet.
Right. But he's, throughout the first, I would say, third of this movie, he's very much just kind of like doing it to get out of it.
Yes.
And so from here, they go back to the market that J.
Yeah, they go
XIE.
they go meet I'm just going to call her the granny because I don't feel like butchering Chinese names.
I'm going to say Zhe. G? I bet it's G.
It's probably
G, yeah. They go see G.
Yeah, they get a bit of information out of her, and they also take some weapons. And eventually they go to the mountain to Mount Tsubaki, was it?
I believe so.
Right. So they go there because Millie knows that there's something of interest there. It's not quite revealed to the audience yet, though.
And that's one thing this film does, is it leaves a lot of the answers till when they're necessary, so it keeps the audience member
wondering what's going to happen.
Questioning. Right. And it's not one of those things, because the whole idea, I mean, this movie pulls its plot from Terminator, where it's like they're trying to alter the future by going back to the past.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what the future holds, but you don't know what they want the future to be exactly.
Right.
So it's a pretty good way of making it this plot that the audience has to continue to ask questions about,
right?
Which I think
keeping
makes
them engaged with the story.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. When they arrive at the mountain, they find themselves held up by the military, who claim that an undetonated bomb has been found. Thus, our two protagonists decide to park off somewhere and, hike their way to the mountain, discovering a crash site. And Millie realizes that essentially what's happened is a spaceship landed on Earth, and the military has taken it. I keep wanting to say U.S. military for some reason.
Well, it's very clearly the Japanese.
Yes, I know. I don't know why I want to say U.S. military. I guess I associate military with the U.S. During all this, we're also introduced to a subplot where our antagonist, Mizuguchi, is having a bit of strife with the rest of the Chinese triads he's in, specifically the leader, who's an old man.
Now, in this exchange, it's basically said that the Chinese leader is wanting, or no, that's in the later scene where he says he wants to run Japan, if I remember correctly. This is kind of his accepting of the journey, where he is given this task to go retrieve whatever's at this laboratory.
Right, yeah. Following this, we get a flashback. Millie explains the backstory to Miyamoto about her essentially being from the future. The present in the film is set in 2002, but she is from the year 2084, where humanity is essentially at war with an alien race called the Dagaras.
Mm-hmm. And they're all but extinct. The humans are. There's only there's a refugee full of the last remaining humans, and before Millie left, the aliens infiltrated the base and killed everybody. There was nobody left. She's basically the last human of this of that future alive.
Right. And yeah, as the aliens attack, Millie essentially takes the quest to... There's a time machine in the facility that's activated, and Millie takes a device called the Sonic Mover, which essentially allows you to move really fast. You get temporary flash ability.
Or is it slow down time?
Honestly, what's the difference?
One's making time move slower, one's making you move faster.
Yeah, potato.
It's very different.
The movie does not make a distinction. It doesn't matter.
None of this none of this makes sense. It doesn't matter. Quote one Adam Wingard, director of the worst Godzilla movie ever.
Boy,
I had to bring it up.
Excited for Godzilla X Kong coming out March 2024.
No.
I think you are.
But please continue with Returner.
Miyamoto seemingly believes her theory, or believes her story, and it's like, yeah, let's do this. Let's save the Earth. Let's do all that. And it's like, since I trust you now, you should trust me and remove this bomb from my neck. And she's like, great. Does that, and then he just laughs and he's like, what do you paint me for, stupid?
And then to prove that she's from the future, she uses the wrist device, throws a thing of water in the air, and then runs to put the bomb back on him.
Yeah.
And then run back and put the water back in the cup.
Right. Although he's still not 100%. He doesn't 100% believe her yet.
Right. But that kind of was like, okay, that was a little weird. There's got to be something fishy going on here.
Right. And either way, he's got the bomb back, so.
Right. Now, after this, don't we go back to our Yakuza members and them going to that base?
Well, we get the introduction to the spaghetti. And then we...
Right.
And then we get a little bit of flashbacks from Miyamoto with him and his Chinese friend when they were kids.
Mm-hmm.
And
because he gives the backstory to Millie about why he's in the place he's at.
A little later, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then we cut to Mizuguchi arriving at the science facility where he assaults the spy scientist that's working with the Triad. And she brings them into the facility where he sees the spaceship. And then soon enough is shown our first alien, which is actually not shown to the audience in this scene. We only really see Mizuguchi's reaction.
And honestly, up until this point, when I was watching it for the second time, I kind of realized, I was like, you could remove the alien from this film and it would still be interesting.
Right.
I don't know. This was when I realized that this film kind of is blending genres, and the characters are interesting enough that I don't know if I would need the alien to still enjoy this movie.
Right. And then after he sort of just toys with the alien, it activates the spaceship, in which we get a Shinji Higuchi cameo.
Yes.
Which caught me off guard completely when I was watching
He's not credited.
Nah.
If I remember correctly. He's not credited, but I read in a vlog that he was in it, so I was like, well, really? That's interesting. So yeah, we got our Shinji Higuchi cameo.
I saw him in the scene, and I'm like, wait a minute, is that? No way, is that Shinji Higuchi? And it was. From what I read, there's also the special effects director of some of the GMK and a couple of the other 2000s era Godzilla films also makes an appearance somewhere, but I don't know what he looks like, so. I don't know where he appears.
Gotcha. Now, this is probably partially due to, this is a Toho film, so I bet this was all simply because Toho needed extras, and they were probably at the Toho lot working on probably Sinking of Japan. Would that have been around this time?
That was 2006.
Was it? Okay. That's what I was... I don't know why I was thinking 03. Because this was after GMK, so Higuchi probably wasn't really working on any effects movies because he only briefly worked on GMK.
Right.
So it was probably just something Toho needed extras, and they were on the Toho lot for a day, and they were like, "Can you do this? You're under contract. You can do this."
Maybe. I don't know.
But from here, so what the ship does is it blasts this ball of energy into the mountain, and the way it works is it flips a car into the air and it comes back down and explodes, but it leaves this like very circular mark on everything it hits up until the mountain, and it's a huge explosion. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't tackle the idea of that huge of an explosion would have probably like brought a lot of people into that area, like SDF and firefighters and police and government officials.
Well, they do address
and
the
that.
firefighters, to be fair.
Right, but not like as many as you would expect. But following this, if I remember correctly, we get a weird moment where Millie goes into our main character's room and puts up his jacket, which is a weird piece of this film that we'll come back to. And then they run to Z's shop, where she was watching the news, and a weird CMN thing happens, more weirder than normal, where one of the anchors says, "Give me back the gate," which I've still yet to understand what the gate means.
Yeah.
I mean, they allude to the thought of it's like, give me back my child, but I don't understand why the term is the gate.
Yeah, I didn't get that either. But it's not really focused on very much after this point. Like, the alien's ability to make people talk for it does come back into play later, but those specific words don't really end up meaning anything.
Right. After that scene, it's brought up, I believe, twice in that scene, and then they talk about the explosion that was at the lab, which then leads to our main characters getting some weapons and heading out to the lab once more. This time with the funny little sequence.
They even get changed.
Oh, that's right, because following this, he takes Millie to the assassin's shop?
I guess.
It was like, you can have whatever you want. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of funny. And she gets cleaned up, gets a haircut, gets her face washed. She's acting like a child. And there's this whole joke in the movie that she doesn't like being called a kid, but she acts like one. But then we get a weird moment where it does feel like the movie's trying to like allude to some romantic feelings, but also not at the same time. You know what I'm talking about?
What? Where?
You didn't get the feeling that our main protagonist had minor romantic feelings for Millie?
No.
I got some of that, at least during the sequence where she was revealed with her like cleaned up look.
I mean,
which was really weird.
I mean, I noticed that shot was a little weird, but like, I didn't get the romantic vibes from their relationship at all. At the end, I kind of thought they were going to go with her essentially being like, if she didn't, she'd either go back, be sent back in time, or she'd sort of become like maybe like a surrogate daughter type role, which I feel like is kind of what the film's going for. I never got the romantic element.
But at least in this shot, like the way it's framed and the way he reacts is kind of like, that's a little weird.
Look, man, Kamen Rider the Next. Look, that movie, just to get Hongo involved with the plot, he literally stalks his student. For like a good 5 minutes until the Shocker Riders show up to beat him up for being a pedo. And then at the end of the movie, it's weird, man. He goes to his student's home, and eventually, after he gets fired by the school because everyone in the school every student is afraid of him. He's literally bullied in the movie because he's probably attracted to his student.
Oh,
by his student, like they bully him for being probably attracted to him.
Well, I don't know.
For comparison's sake.
I don't know. In the film, it was just a weird moment that felt like it was meaning something completely different than what the rest of the film did. Because the rest of the film, it's either like a brother-sister thing or like a father-daughter thing.
I got the
or just a partner thing.
Yeah, the partner thing as well. Yeah.
So once they head off, they end up meeting or finding somebody that can get them into this lab without causing a stir.
Yeah.
Which has a funny little comedic moment where she put on one of the bombs on this guy's neck. And as the guy walks past the frame, it has like a Godzilla versus Gigan moment where like a circle is on his neck and it says, look.
And it just pauses for like a split second.
Which is, it's very Japanese and I love it. It was like a funny little comedic moment that I definitely laughed out loud at. And this is also where the duo of them, like once they're finally working together, I think they have some great chemistry.
Oh, 100%.
Our two main, like it becomes entertaining to watch them interact with each other and bounce off of each other and kind of.
Oh, I think the comedic elements with them are very funny.
Right,
I think
and
that's
it's not
like the strongest part of the film for me.
And what I appreciate is the comedic nature doesn't detract from the sad moments or the intense moments.
I mean, I feel like the comedy felt mostly natural in this film.
I agree. Wholeheartedly, I agree with that.
Probably, like, my personal styles of comedy are either, like, slapstick comedy or something that just, I guess, feels like real banter rather than something that feels like it's written to be comedic.
Right.
Whereas
in this film,
like
definitely
to be comedic, I just find it comes across as forced.
Right.
And thus I don't find it funny.
And in this film, it's very much banter back and forth.
Yeah.
Which I think works perfectly.
Oh, 100%.
And so they're officially infiltrated in the lab.
Mm-hmm.
And our main protagonist then has to kill everybody again to get to the alien, to kill the alien, because what Millie has been informed to do is to kill the alien because the alien is what brought on the end of the world, and she needs to do that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to be fair, Miyamoto hasn't actually killed anyone yet because Triad member Mizuguchi has shown up, and he's also here to collect the alien, and is killing everyone. He's
right. He ends up shooting the spy. He shoots the alien.
Well, he doesn't shoot the spy or the alien yet. That's later. That's near the end.
Well, of this sequence, right? But yeah, he goes in and he kills people as our main characters are trying to get down to the alien. I think if I remember correctly, they end up getting to the alien before.
Yes, they do. And
she's confused because this is not the alien that she thought she was killing.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't this where they allude to the like child thing?
With Millie?
No, with the alien being like a child.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Which is like, Okay, so
And it's where we first see it in full.
Right. Which is a weird, like, assessment to just come to, that it's the child,
Mm-hmm.
based off of the evidence of the gate, which didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little confusing here, but Millie is very conflicted with killing
Mm-hmm.
the alien, which I also didn't entirely understand. Like, it's nice that she didn't, obviously, but it's also like, why would you be conflicted? You know what I mean?
I mean, she's kind of at a loss for what to do, really.
Right. But from this moment, we get...
Plus, the alien
they kind of
is dying anyways, as we
right.
realize.
And so they kind of back off as our villain goes on his little spree, ends up killing the lab spy, shooting the alien, and just as, like, they are about to take the alien, that's when our main character surprises them.
Yeah, minus the part that he actually doesn't shoot the alien. He doesn't shoot it until near the end of the film.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
That's right, yeah, because it's on the oil rig.
Yes. But he does have a scuffle with the main character, where the main character sort of confronts Mizoguchi about their past together, Mizoguchi having essentially no memory of them at all.
Right. Which, I mean, this is like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And considering how many people he's probably killed in that time frame, like, I can't entirely blame him for not remembering.
Yeah, it was just another human trafficking operation for him.
Exactly.
Just as you do. I mean, hey, it's pretty relevant in these times.
Yeah. But no, and from here we get a pretty interesting, kind of claustrophobic fight sequence between the Yakuza and our main character.
Well, they're not the Yakuza, they're triads.
Is that confirmed that, like, all the people of his group are Chinese?
Well, they're a part of the Chinese triad, so I'm...
Gotcha.
Following this, after Millie escapes using the sonic mover device. Did they escape with the alien in this scene?
No.
That's right.
I think, if I remember correctly, their plan was to, but they didn't because...
Just because.
Yeah, they didn't. I remember being a little confused by, like, why they did the thing they did during this sequence.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, the two essentially escape to the car. Mizoguchi has a little tantrum. It's pretty funny. The actor here, Goro Kishitani, is kind of chewing up the scenery in this role, honestly, throughout the entire film.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't they end up shooting our main character, Miyamoto?
They may have shot at it. They may
because then Millie has to take him back to G, and then she has to Millie ends up bandaging him up, and when he finally comes to, he's like, "Who did this?" And she said, "It's in military training," which is when he finally realizes that the aliens are real, the invasion's true, she is from the future, she, all of that's true, and this is kind of the changing point of him as a character, kind of fighting against what she's been saying.
Right. Yeah. Meanwhile, the Mizoguchi and the Triads take the alien's ship, and Mizoguchi sends some of his goons to get information on Miyamoto from the granny.
Ji.
Yes. I'm not going to butcher her name. We're bad enough with Japanese names.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but in this sequence, we get the very wonderfully done Band-Aid moment.
Mm-hmm.
Where she reveals that the bomb is just a Band-Aid. She used some of her future technology to make the explosion happen and whatnot.
Yeah, I think what happened was like she just shot the bottle earlier in the film.
Mm-hmm.
She just hid the gun behind her back and shot at it.
And so this whole time he's been paranoid about getting his head blown off when it was just a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets a little upset, but then he jokes about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this whole scene's brilliant.
Oh yeah, it's really funny. During all this, we also find out about Miyamoto and Millie's backstory. So Miyamoto grew up in China with a boy named Zihuan, and essentially one day he came back to find that Zihuan, and I definitely butchered that, and I talked about not butchering the granny's name, Jesus. and yeah, when he returns this one day, Mizuguchi's there rounding up Zihuan and various other kids, and essentially is going to sell them off.
Right.
Leading to his essentially grudge against Mizuguchi. Feeling guilt for not saving his friend.
Right. And then they go back, talk to Ji, where she gives them some info. And this is around the time that Mizuguchi's goons appear and show up at her place. Which then it leads her to saying, go out the back door, take the motorcycle, I'll meet up with you guys.
Well, that happened a little bit
before
this, but yeah.
That's right. So then they get on the bike, they travel, they're waiting, and then I believe they don't really it goes to Ji meeting up with them.
Well, that's where we get Miyamoto's full backstory and Millie talking about her dead brother who got killed by the aliens.
Right. And then Ji shows up, and they're like, why are you late? And she ends up handing them a whole arsenal. And then she reveals that she was being followed, but she has a plan for it. And this is where I really realized that Ji's the best character in this movie, because she has a plan for everything. She is the best. And she never gets caught. And when she was sending them off, when the goons arrived, she did say, I've been in this, I don't remember the exact word, but basically I've been in this for too long to not figure out how to do me, do my thing and not get in trouble. And then we get the whole motorcycle chase that feels very much Final Wars-ish, that I wonder if Kitamura kind of took inspiration from. And
honestly, I was more thinking Kamen Rider during this sequence.
I mean, maybe Kamen Rider, maybe Yamazaki took it from Kamen Rider and then Kitamura took it from Yamazaki. Or maybe they both took it from Kamen Rider.
I mean, it's a bike chase. I'm going to think of Kamen Rider.
Okay. But then we get the doubt of maybe Ji didn't do anything, and then right as he's about to take ownership of the situation, suddenly the car just explodes.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that's what Ji did. And then from here, we're into the final part of the movie, which is all on an oil rig, correct? Yes. So the final part of the movie is on an oil rig. Our main antagonist ends up killing the old Chinese man because he realizes with the alien spacecraft he has the ultimate power and can take control.
Right.
And he ends up shooting the alien in this scene because the alien's not cooperating, and he's just, being the character he is. Mm-hmm. Only for our two main characters to show up to save the day, hopefully. But that doesn't end up working too well initially.
Right.
Millie is caught, and it appears that our main character
Miyamoto
has met an end, and
to a flurry of bullets and even a rocket.
And from here, we think all is lost. And this is where we kind of get...
me and noticed what he was wearing on his arm.
Fair. Good attention to detail. So, Millie tries to, reason with him, but it clearly doesn't work. He's just bad to the bone. He's an awful human being.
This is where he actually shoots the alien.
Yes, I was about to say this is where he shoots the alien.
Not
the alien's
any of the
crying.
Other things you mentioned.
Well, he shot the alien, which was kind of shocking. I didn't expect him to shoot the alien, even though that's probably what you should do in most situations.
Species.
If there's a xenomorph, you should probably shoot it.
I'm going to be honest. With a revolver, that's not going to work.
It worked on one.
Unless you have amazing aim and you can shoot it in the head enough time.
Or you're Vasquez and you just push its head onto the wall and pow, 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 pow.
That's not a revolver.
Well, I'm pretty sure it was.
No, it's not.
What was it?
It's a pistol.
Okay, fair enough. Well, aren't they using pistols?
Mizuguchi's using a revolver.
Okay, that's fair.
The other characters, like Miyamoto and Millie, are using...
Every other character is using a pistol, except for him?
The guards are using, assault rifles.
Assault rifles, yeah.
Yeah, get your gun.
So, I literally said assault rifles at the same time you did. So, this is where Millie...
The pistols, man.
Uh-huh. This is where Millie realizes that she was also... What's the term I'm looking for? Miyamoto also surprised her because she realizes she's missing the wrist device.
Yes.
And this is where she's like, you underestimated my partner.
And he's like, that kid calling me her buddy.
And so I love this. I remember when I first watched this was the second time I've ever seen the film, by the way. Mm-hmm. Second and third. I remember when I first watched this movie, I was really happy to see this sequence. I didn't notice that the wrist device was on his wrist. Mm-hmm. And, only for it to happen, I was like, that's pretty good. And then he absolutely demolishes everybody.
Right, dodging all the bullets.
Matrix style.
The inspiration is.
Millie gets the alien, tries to run away, realizes that it's sunrise, and she thinks she's too late. But Miyamoto is encouraging her not to give up. Mm-hmm. And then when they think all is lost after defeating all but our main antagonist, who ends up having them pretty much at point blank.
Yeah.
The joke that started at the beginning, because Miyamoto has this thing where this phone will pop out of his sleeve, mm-hmm. and it's actually a thing for a bomb, so all he has to do is hit the like call button.
Yeah.
And every time they see this, they're like, "What are you going to do? Make a call?" Which every time, I mean both times it's used. And it, if I remember correctly, doesn't the alien spacecraft blow up?
So he blows up like most like this, I guess, area that they're in, and which sends the alien spacecraft flying. And he's like, tells Millie, or I hope the ship has good defenses or something along those lines. And they enter the ship as to avoid the explosion, as all the guards and Mizuguchi are seemingly killed.
Only for Mizuguchi somehow to still be alive and pulls with
like a rod stuck in his chest,
and he just pulls it out. He's like, "You barely missed."
It's like right above where his heart would be.
Mm-hmm. And then he still has his gun, whereas Miyamoto does not.
It's on the ground,
and they're screwed. And then we get the bullets. And then we find out that the alien's protecting them with the force field.
Yes.
Which
is something that was going
convenience.
to... I mean, they showed that the aliens had like a force field ability beforehand.
Right, but they also kind of hinted at the fact that the force field kind of varied. Like they had to like make new force fields. So it's a little bit of plot convenience. It's a little plot convenient.
It's set up well enough, I'd say.
And so this gives Miyamoto enough time to get a gun and finally put a bullet in his arch.
Shooting Mizuguchi through the hand and to the forehead.
Finally getting rid of his arch nemesis, who he's been trying to kill for
15 years.
15 years. And then all of a sudden a jumbo jet appears.
Yes.
And then it transforms.
Surprisingly, this came out before Transformers.
Yeah. And then this is the alien's parents. So it was a child, and they somehow have a healing device that like heals the alien immediately.
Mm-hmm.
How, I don't know, but I mean, that's pretty cool.
Just yes.
And then we find out that essentially what happened. So, I mean, this has been basically what they were saying, but it's pretty well clarified by now. The reason the aliens invaded the world was their child was killed, and so they basically sought out revenge and was planning on destroying the entire Earth. Like, they weren't going to invade at all. They were peaceful until, yeah. And so everything's good. And then we find out, because Millie is fading out of existence, that they have changed the future and everything is good.
Mm-hmm.
But this is kind of a heartfelt ending. Like, for all the action, comedy, and whatnot that's happened, like, this is kind of a heartfelt ending.
Yeah.
Miyamoto doesn't... Yeah, because Miyamoto doesn't want Millie to leave, but Millie has to leave. Like, the space-time continuum will not let her stay.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, can you just stay a little bit? And then she ends up disappearing before he can hug her, and he's left alone.
Mm-hmm.
And then we transition back to G's place, where he's retiring from being a hitman.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole sequence is just like horrifying to me. I remember watching this and being like shocked in disbelief. So shortly after he retires, he goes out and he starts smoking a cigarette, only for a guy who he left to survive appears with a gun and a cane, because Miyamoto did shoot him in the leg, and now he's permanently, injured from that.
Mm-hmm.
Pulls out the gun. Miyamoto realizes he has no weapons to defend himself and gets shot. My heart dropped when this happened.
Yeah, I was not expecting this either.
So the camera lingers, and what's interesting is at the about halfway through the film, they actually brought this up because Miyamoto found some newspaper clippings on the floor of him being dead,
which he thought was like a warning from the triads or something. But the grandmother was like, they would just shoot you dead. They wouldn't bother with this.
Right. So
and earlier in the film as well, Millie talks about how since Miyamoto helped her, she wants to return the favor to him someday or another.
And she promises she will, but he never believes her.
Right.
And we had the weird moment with the jacket earlier that just didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But now it all... So, okay, after a very long and dramatic pause, like, what happens in this scene should not have taken this long of a dramatic pause, in all honesty. But Miyamoto gets up and reaches into his pocket where, just as Millie had a bulletproof shard protecting her, he had the same that kept the bullet from entering his body. And this is where we find out that a future Millie went back in time to plant the shard in his jacket. So at that moment in the film where we had Millie saying, "Oh, your jacket fell and I was putting it up," that was future Millie trying to quietly put that in his jacket to save him in the future, while another Millie is creating the future that the future Millie comes from, where they are, safe and sound from the aliens. Which is pretty brilliant. I
nice
enjoy
payoff.
that. Like,
I feel like I've seen it before, but it is a nice payoff. It's just a nice moment.
And this film does have a lot of those. There's a lot of, like, the script is very solid when it comes to the payoffs and bringing everything, returning everything back to where they started.
Are you proud of that one?
I am. I'm very proud.
You shouldn't be.
So he gets back up after, this brilliant, like, conclusion, and he just kind of walks off into the sunset as this song that is a bopper plays. Like, it sounds like Van Halen, to be honest. It was kind of like a little Van Halen-ish. I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
And with that, we have finished Returner.
Nice.
Credits roll and everything's over. So, Rex, do you have anything else you want to say for the conclusion of this, or do you want to transition into the final, cast and crew info and whatnot?
Transition to the cast and crew intro and all that stuff.
Okay. So we've already talked about director, writer, and effects director Takashi Yamazaki. So I'm gonna move on past him momentarily to talk about the other effects director, Katsuro Inoue, who worked on Blue SWAT, B-Fighter, and B-Fighter Kabuto, the 3 Metal Hero series. He also has worked on Ultraman.
A massive history of like Kamen Rider, Sentai, Metal Heroes, and all that. And even though the ones you mentioned, I believe, were the ones where he was special effects director, I want to say.
Yeah, he also was effects director on Ultraman Z, on Mayuji 2, Attack on Titan 1 and 2, various Sentai shows. Like, that's what he's done most, is Super Sentai.
Right.
And then he worked on Black RX, J Agito, it looks like one of the Agito movies, Ryuki, Ultraman vs. Kamen Rider, and Shin Kamen Rider.
Right.
He also worked on the following films as various different roles: Gamera 3, Revenge Virus, Godzilla 2000, On Mayuji, Cutie Honey, Sinking of Japan, 20th Century Boys 3, Giant God Warrior Appears in Tokyo, Gihara, the Long Dark-Haired Monster, Gatchaman, the live-action film, Ultraman Taiga, and Shin Ultraman.
Funny you mentioned Giant God Warrior, because I was reading up on Yamazaki, and apparently one of his dream projects for like a movie he would love to direct is a live action adaptation of Nazca for Valley of the Wind.
Is that where the God Warrior comes from?
Yes,
Okay. Interesting.
which was also the first movie Arno worked on.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Because he animated
know
God Warrior in the original film.
Oh, that's okay. I didn't know that. That makes it more interesting how that short goes kind of full circle.
Yeah.
And that's all tokusatsu. That's not animated, if I remember correctly.
in the short film, yeah.
Yeah.
In the animated film, it's obviously animated.
Right. But as for producers, Toru Hirobe worked on Parasite Eve and Space Travelers. The other, another producer, Shikahiro Ando, worked on the Always trilogy, Parasite Eve, Juvenile, K-20, which Takashi Yamazaki's wife co-wrote, Space Battleship Yamato and Eternal Zero. Again, all of those are Yamazaki titles. The other producer, Yoshinari Shimatani, worked on Gantz, Space Battleship Yamato, 20th Century Boys, Always Sunset 1 and 2 on Mayuji and K-20. Shuji Abe, another producer, worked on K-20, Always Sunset Trilogy, Space Travelers, Parasite Eve, Eternal Zero, The Great War of
Archimedes,
Lupin the Third, the First. And then as for your three main actors, Takashi Kaneshiro, who played Miyamoto, he was also in K-20. An Suzuki was in Juvenile, Moonchild, and Ghostbook. And Goro Kishitani as Mizoguchi was in Gatchaman, One Missed Call, in the Rasan TV show.
I had a funny feeling he was in Something Ring. I wasn't sure which one he was in. I had a feeling it was one of the TV shows.
Yep.
I knew
now, as for the majority of the remaining actors, a lot of them didn't do a lot of any real tokusatsu. And to be honest, there's not
Kiki, who plays like the granny. She was a very a rather well-known Japanese actress. I mean, probably her most well-known modern film is Shoplifters from 2018, which starred Sakura Ando and Lily Frankie, which was a very big, which was like an Oscar-winning film, essentially, like best foreign film of 2018, which I believe was actually her last film prior to her death in 2018.
I think you're correct.
Outside of that, she also did appear in like Kamikaze Girls and even like Rex: A Dinosaur Story. So she had been on a little bit of Toku outside of Returner, but not much.
Right. And this is kind of an interesting thing about Returner, is it feels very indie, despite kind of having, Toho behind it. Like it's a very tiny film. There's only a handful of characters, really. The rest of the characters are really side characters. There's only your three, like Ji, Miyamoto, and Millie, and then
there's
you've got and that's really it. That's your main
important
core. Yeah. And then everybody else is a side character that has maybe a minute and a half of screen time.
Right. The only real one that leaves much of an impression is like the Chinese triad leader. But even then, I don't think his subplot. The only reason it exists really is to give Mizoguchi a reason to be involved.
Right. And I think that's why in the TV version they cut that whole thing out.
Yeah.
Was just because, you could in theory you could cut it and the story would be
you cut out I feel like you can't cut out the first scene where they establish them, because that's what brings Mizoguchi into the plot with the alien.
Right.
but you could probably cut out the conflict between Mizuguchi and the Triad members from the film. I feel like you could probably get away with that.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing really is it establishes that they want control of Japan. And then he doesn't want that, so he just kills them.
Well, I thought it was more that Mizuguchi was like wanted control of Japan.
Well, right, but the Triad wants control, so it's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
So he would rather just kill them and get them out of Japan than have to worry about. Because I mean, he's your basic power hungry antagonist.
Yeah.
So the reason we're doing Yamazaki Month is in hype of Godzilla Minus One, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what? This is going to be kind of an interesting question, I feel like. But what does this do for you in building up excitement, or maybe making you have questionable doubts about Yamazaki's film?
Well, it makes me excited for how the action is going to be directed in Yamazaki's upcoming Godzilla film. I'm very curious how... Well, we've seen a little bit of Godzilla action, and it seems to have a fair amount of energy based on that teaser trailer we were shown, particularly with shots like that of the train being thrown around.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's an energy to Yamazaki's filmmaking that you can see in the Always Sunset trilogy in certain scenes, but it's really like out in the open in this film that I'm pretty excited to see in Minus One.
Yeah.
My only
for me, I think
with Minus One, based on both this film and the Always Sunset trilogy, is maybe some of the pacing will be a tad long. Because I feel like I don't think this film is too bad with it, but I do feel, especially like the Always Sunset movies, I do feel like their main flaw is that they are a bit too long for their own good.
Okay. See, I will say this movie is 2 hours long. It's about 4 minutes shy of that, if I remember correctly. And I feel like you could tighten it up by maybe about 10 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
The first time they go to the lab, for me, seems a little redundant.
Yeah.
But that's really it. I will say I do love the character interactions here. I love the human story.
Mm.
And from my understanding, that's what always...
Oh, the Always Sunsets trilogy has, or so far duology for me, has like a great cast of characters.
So I will say that's probably something I'm looking forward to, is to see what Yamazaki's human cast is. We still don't know what the characters are.
We don't even know cast members yet. Please, Sakura Ando, please let that be true.
I wouldn't be surprised if they bring An into it, maybe.
Who?
The Millie actress.
Oh yeah, I actually had that thought too, where like, damn, she was in Ghost Book. Maybe she'll be in.
She was in Ghost Book.
Maybe she'll be in Minus One.
She could be. Maybe she's one of the main. Because to be honest, thinking about it, like she was in his first movie, his second movie, and his most recent movie, and Ghost Book was kind of the leading hint towards Minus One happening.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up being maybe one of the main cast members.
Maybe.
Because by now she'd be old enough to, have maybe gone through the entire war. So she might be able to like understand the atomic bombing based off of her age. So I could definitely see her maybe being maybe there's a main female character. So maybe she could be that female character.
it really depends on where they go with the movie and who they believe is best for the role of the characters.
Right, right.
But
This is all purely speculation. We don't know anything.
The Sakura Ando rumor is true. Please God, that would be peak.
But I feel like if there's going to be a main female character, it's definitely going to be one of the two.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Sakura Ando, I only suggest her because A, she's brilliant, B, she was rumored to be on set.
Right. So, I'm personally excited based off of this movie, how well the human dynamic will be, especially if it's maybe kind of like 54, how 54 has like your four main characters. So if Yamazaki's remotely doing anything close to 54, having like that tight...
Yamazaki can definitely balance characters well. I mean, the Always Sunset film have like two... It essentially focuses on two cast groups. There's the Suzuki family with like Shinichi Tsutsumi's character, his wife, his son, and then like the girl that ends up working for them that kind of becomes like a surrogate daughter. And then in the second film, it's like their niece also kind of joins the family for a bit. And then the second cast of characters is like Chigawa, who's like the writer who ends up writing about Godzilla in one of his stories, leading to that Godzilla opening. And then his story with like his Junosuke, which is like his surrogate son, his adoptive son, really. And then Hiromi, who's the love interest for him. And like it's a balancing act for having those two character groups, and it works really well. And on top of that, there's even more characters in those films.
Yeah, see, I'm pretty hopeful of, at least based off of Returner, at least on the human side of the film.
I think we're in very good hands with the human side. I think we're in good hands. Better than Wingod's hands, at least.
Right. And the story, like, even if they do like back and forth jumping from the war to like post-war Japan, I doubt they would do that, but if they were, I feel like they could do it. But I feel like we could jump around at least if we're trying to cover all of Japan during post-war. I feel like Yamazaki can also do that, like jump around and establish everything. And if he kind of follows this same storytelling of like not giving the what am I thinking?
I don't know.
No, if we see a story kind of like this film where like Yamazaki doesn't tell you everything and you're kind of left to kind of figure it out as the story progresses, I think that could be very interesting.
Oh yeah.
Like follow the human characters as they learn about Godzilla or something like that.
Right.
Or just like maybe the film like would start off with Godzilla appearing and then we kind of follow as the country. Right. And like it, that also follows into like the whole country falling apart and whatnot. Like that, I feel like that could be a very interesting plot point if they go with that. Just based off of how Returners at least structured and how what little we know of -1 so far. So that's my answer to that question. At least is the human characters and the story. But I am a little concerned about, like you said, pacing, especially towards the final act. So that's my answer.
At least I can forgive it more for Godzilla because more Godzilla movie,
I mean, yeah. So with that, I think, is there anything else you want to bring up?
Not really. There's not really anything else to talk about, and we can't exactly do much of a ranking yet, can we?
So where would you put Returner on your ranking list?
Well, so out of all the options, we've got Returner. So I think I'm going to have to put Returner at number 1.
Me too. So far we're in agreement. So I think all we have left is the shameless self-promotion that we can give our lovely audience.
Mm-hmm.
So Rex, why don't you tell the lovely people at home where they can find you at?
Gladly. Well, listeners, you can find me on YouTube at Rexino, on Twitter at Rex_Xenomorph, and on Instagram, Rex_Xeno. And if you want to check out some of my writing, go take a look at the Tokusatsu Network.
And then as for me, hi, my name's Elijah. You can find me on YouTube at ET13 Productions, on Twitter at ET13 Productions, or on Instagram at ET13 Productions. If you want to find my personal accounts, it's not that difficult, but I'm not going to link them. I am also the production manager, staff writer, and head of the video department for Kaiju Ramen Media. I write articles for Kaiju Ramen Magazine and the website kaijuramenmedia.com. I also oversee all of the development of the magazines, and I am the head of the editing and video creating department of Kaiju Ramen Media on YouTube. So go check those out. Again, kaijuramenmedia.com, Kaiju Ramen Magazine, and Kaiju Ramen Media on YouTube. So with that, we got one last thing to do, Rex, and that's to let the lovely people at home know how they can support our lovely little podcast here. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes. That boosts our ratings and helps us get recommended to more people just like you. We are still sitting at a 3.1. I feel like with how much we talk, we're at least worth a 3.5. At least.
Maybe.
But if you don't have an Apple device, which I don't blame you, I don't actually, that's very much a lie. I'm using an Apple device right now to do this podcast. You can rate us on Spotify. We've got 6 reviews so far, and we're all at 5 stars. So thanks to everybody who's reviewed. I wish you would show us because I would definitely shout you guys out. But keep them coming. It's highly appreciated. We do appreciate the 5 stars. We really do. So thank you guys so much for that. If you want to stay up to date with all things Kaiju Conversation related, follow us on Twitter at KAIJU_CONVERS. If you don't have Twitter, you can follow us on Instagram or like us on Facebook at the same handle. If you're like me before podcasting and you don't have any social media, lucky you, you can email us at kaijuconversation@gmail.com, all lowercase, all one word, you know the drill. And as always, we'll read your reviews on air for everyone to hear. We also have a Teespring store. Eventually, we'll have original artwork on there, but until then, you can sport our awesome logo on a t-shirt or maybe even a coffee mug. If you'd like to chat with us, check out our Discord server full of people that have similar interests to you. It looks like recently on the Discord server, there was a discussion about Ultraman Blazer and its cinematography. So it's a great community full of great people. Highly recommend. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you can be notified anytime we upload a video. I can tell you, at least from this recording, there should be 1 or 2 minisodes coming out. And those are exclusive to the YouTube channel. We also, like I said, we post exclusives like minisodes or bloopers. We also have an interview with Mechagodzilla designer Jerk Kuchevsky on the channel. I definitely butchered his name. I apologize. But we also have a monthly stream titled Kaiju Conversation Live, where I hop on with a guest and we talk for between an hour and a half to 5 hours. Most recently, I had Jack Hudgens of the Drift Space podcast and of G-Man on Mysterioid on Twitter. He came on and we talked about Oppenheimer. You could have joined us and listened to it live and interacted, or you could listen to the bonus episode that came out following that. So definitely check that out. And a huge thanks to Rex for editing all of these episodes and all the other content we upload. His links can be found in the description below. Definitely check him out. Thank you, Rex. This stuff I know is a lot, but I appreciate it. Along with Rex, we'd like to give a huge thanks and shout out to Danny DeManna of the Godzilla Novelization Project for his amazing vocals on our theme song. You can support him by following him on Twitter at Danzilla93_GNP or visit his website, GodzillaNovelizationProject.com. And a huge thanks to Grattan Conwell from the podcast Giant Monster BS for composing the music for our theme song. You can support him by following the podcast on Twitter at Giant Monster BS or on any podcast platform under the name Giant Monster BS. So with that, we're going to wrap things up here. I'm out of things to say, Rex. You got anything else?
No. I've said everything I want.
Perfect. So thank you guys so much for listening. And as always, please remember, life's too short to not talk big. Bye, guys.
Bye.
We are set, we are in debt, there's nothing to sweat. Life's too short now, baby. Kaiju. Not too big now, baby. Conversation. His name's Elijah, baby. And also Rex now, baby. We love those kaiju, baby. And you will too now.